Unlike everyone else who greeted the Master Chief and stared at his uniform, medals, ribbons, or the Spartan insignia, Dr. Halsey stared into his eyes, and she never saluted. John had never gotten used to that. "I'm fine, ma'am," he said. "We won at Sigma Octantis. It was good to have a complete victory." Indeed, it was. She paused and glanced about. "How would you like to have another victory?" she whispered. "The biggest we've ever had." "Of course, ma'am," he said, with no hesitation. "I was counting on you to say that, Master Chief." She turned to the military police attendant waiting at the entrance to the lounge. "Open these damn doors, soldier. Let's get this over with." "Yes, ma'am," the MP said. The doors swung inward. She stopped and said to the Master Chief, "I'll be speaking to you and the other Spartans soon." She then entered the darkened chamber, and the doors sealed behind her. The Master Chief forgot about the debriefing and Captain Key's puzzling question about not winning. If Dr. Halsey had a mission for him and his team, it would be a good one. She had given him everything: duty, honor, purpose, and a destiny to protect humanity. John hoped she would give him one more thing: a way to win the war.
Stockpile. Bring your base
Section
full
4.
charge.
Mjolnir. Solidarity. Chapter 25. 09:15 hours, August 25, 2552, military calendar. Epsilon Eridani System. Reach UNSC Military Complex. Planet Reach. Omega Wing. Section 3 Secure Facility. "Good morning, Dr. Halsey," Deja said. "You're 14.3 minutes late this morning." "Blame security, Deja," Dr. Halsey replied, gesturing absently at the AI's holographic projection floating above her desk.
Are ready to secure.
Oni's precautions here are becoming increasingly ridiculous. Dr. Halsey threw her coat over the back of an antique armchair before settling behind her desk. She sighed, and for the 1000th time wished she had a window. The private office was located deep underground, inside the Omega Wing of the super-secure Oni facility, codenamed simply Castle. Castle was a massive complex, 2,000 meters below the granite protection of the Highland Mountains, bomb-proof, well-defended, and impenetrable. The security had its drawbacks, she was forced to admit. Every morning she descended into the secret labyrinth, passed through a dozen security checkpoints, and submitted to a barrage of retina, voice, fingerprint, and brainwave ID scans. Oni had buried her here years ago, when her funding had been shunted to higher-profile projects. All other personnel had been transferred to other operations, and her access to classified materials had been severely restricted. Even shadowy Oni was squeamish about her experiments. That's all changed, thanks to the Covenant, she thought. The Spartan project, unpopular with the Admiralty and the scientific community, had proven most effective. But Spartans had proven themselves time after time in countless ground engagements.
Team needs one more
When the
pass.
Spartans started racking up successes, the Admiralty's reticence vanished. Her meager budget had mushroomed overnight. They had offered her a corner office in the prestigious Olympic Tower at Fleetcom HQ. She had, of course, declined.
Your enemies
Now the
have
brass and
housing
VIPs that
remaining.
wanted to see her had to spend half the day just getting through the security barriers to her lair. She relished the irony. Her banishment had become a bureaucratic weapon. But none of that really mattered. It was just a means to an end for Dr. Halsey, a means to get Project Mjolnir back on track. She reached for her coffee cup and knocked a stack of papers off her desk. They fell, scattered onto the floor, and she didn't bother to retrieve them. She examined the mud-brown dregs in the bottom of the mug. It was several days old. The office of the most important scientist in the military was not the antiseptic clean room environment most people expected. Classified files and papers littered the floor. The holographic projector overhead painted the ceiling with a field of stars. Rich maple paneling covered the walls, and hanging there were framed photographs of her Spartan twos, receiving awards, and the plethora of articles about them that appeared when the Admiralty had made the project public 3 years ago.
Seed stockpile
They had been
incoming.
called the UNSC's super soldiers. The military brass had assured her that the boost to morale was worth the compromised security. At first, she had protested, but, ironically, the publicity had proved convenient. With all the attention on the Spartans' heroics, no one had thought to question their true purpose or their origin. If the truth ever came to light, abducted children replaced by fast-grown clones, the risky experimental surgeries and biochemical augmentations, public opinion would turn against the Spartan project overnight. The recent event at Sigma Octanus had given the Spartans in Mjolnir the final push it needed to enter its final operational phase. She slipped on her glasses and called up the files from yesterday's debriefing. The Oni computer system once again confirmed her retinal scan and voice print. Identity confirmed. Unauthorized artificial intelligence unit detected. Access denied. Damn. Oni grew more paranoid by the day. Deja, she said with a frustrated sigh. The spooks are nervous. I need to power you down or Oni won't give me access to the files. Of course, Doctor, Deja replied calmly. Halsey keyed the power down sequence on her desktop terminal, sending Deja into standby mode. This, she thought, is Ackerson's work, the bastard. She had fought tooth and nail to keep Deja free from the programming shackles Oni demanded, and this was their petty revenge. She scowled impatiently until the computer system finally spit out the data she'd requested. The tiny projectors in the frames of her glasses beamed the data directly to her retina. Her eyes darted back and forth rapidly, as if she had entered REM sleep, as she scanned the documentation from the debriefing. Finally, she removed her glasses and tossed them carelessly on the desk, a sardonic smirk on her face. The overarching conclusion of the finest military experts on the debriefing committee Oni didn't have a clue as to what the Covenant were doing on Sigma Octanus 4. They had learned only 4 solid facts from the entire operation. First, the Covenant had gone to considerable trouble to obtain a single mineral specimen. Second, the pattern of inclusions in that igneous rock sample matched the signal that had been sent and intercepted by the Iroquois. Third, the low entropy of the pattern indicated that it was not random. And fourth, and most important, UNSC translation software couldn't match this pattern to any known Covenant dialect. Her personal conclusions?
Secure.
Either the alien artifact was from a precursor to the present Covenant society, or it was from another, as yet undiscovered, alien culture. When she had dropped that little bombshell of a speculation in the briefing room yesterday, the Oni specialists had gone scrambling for cover, especially that arrogant ass, Colonel Ackerson, she thought with a cruel smile. The brass was not happy with either possibility. If it was old Covenant technology, it indicated they still knew virtually nothing about the Covenant culture. 20 years of intensive study and trillions of credits of research, and they barely even understood the aliens' caste system. And if it was the latter possibility, an artifact of another alien race, that could be even more problematic. Colonel Ackerson and some of the brass had immediately considered the logistics of fighting 2 alien races. Utterly ridiculous. They couldn't even fight one. The UNSC could never hope to survive a war on 2 fronts. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Despite the grim conclusions, there was a silver lining in all this. After the meeting, a new mandate had become the official secret policy of Fleet Command's Special Operations Command, the parent organization for naval special warfare, the Spartan Service Branch. Oni had new marching orders to step up funding of intel and reconnaissance missions by an order of magnitude. Small stealth ships were to be deployed to search remote systems and find where the Covenant were based, and Dr. Halsey had finally received the green light to unleash Mjolnir. She had mixed feelings about it. Truth be told, she always had. It would be the culmination of her life's greatest work. She knew the risks, like spinning a roulette wheel. It was long odds, but the payoff was potentially huge. It meant victory against the Covenant, or the death of all her Spartans. The holographic crystals overhead warmed, and Cortana appeared, sitting cross-legged on Dr. Halsey's desk. Actually, she sat hovering a centimeter off the table's edge. Cortana was slender. The hue of her skin varied from navy blue to lavender, depending on her mood and the ambient lighting. Her hair was cropped short. Her face had a hard, angular beauty. Lines of code flickered up and down her luminous body, and if Dr. Halsey viewed her from the right angle, she could catch a glimpse of the skeletal structure inside her ghostly form. "Good morning, Dr. Halsey," Cortana said. "I've read the committee's report, which was classified as top secret, eyes only." Cortana mused. "I must have overlooked that." She hopped off the desk and circled around Dr. Halsey once. Cortana had been programmed with ONI's best insurgency software, as well as the determination to use those code-cracking skills. While this had been necessary for her mission, when she grew bored, she caused chaos with ONI's own security measures, and she often grew bored. "I assume you have examined the classified data brought back from Sigma Octanus 4? Halsey asked. "I might have seen that somewhere," Cortana said, matter-of-factly. "Your analysis and conclusions?" "There is much more evidence to consider than the data in the committee's files." She looked off into space, as if reading something. "Oh?" 40 years ago, a geological survey team of Sigma Octanus 4 found several igneous rocks with similar, though not identical, anomalous compositions. UNSC geologists believe that these samples were introduced onto the planet via meteorite impacts. They typically are found in long eroded impact craters on the planet's surface. Isotopic dating of the site places those impact craters at present minus 60,000 years. Cortana paused as a hint of a smile played across her holographic features. Though that figure may be inaccurate due to human error, of course. "Of course," Dr. Halsey replied dryly. "I have also, coordinated with the UNSC's astrophysics department and discovered some interesting bits archived in their long-range observational databases. There is a black hole located approximately 40,000 light-years from the Sigma Octanus system. An extremely powerful pulse laser transmission backscattered the matter in the accretion disk, essentially trapped the signal as this matter accelerated toward the speed of light. From our perspective, according to special relativity, this essentially froze the residue of this information on the event horizon." "I'll take your word for it," Dr. Halsey said. "This frozen signal contains information that matches the sample from Sigma Octanus 4. Cortana sighed, and her shoulders slumped. "Unfortunately, all my attempts at translating the code have failed, so far." "Your conclusions, Cortana?" Dr. Halsey reminded her. "Insufficient data for complete analysis, Doctor." "Hypothesize." Cortana bit her lower lip. "There are two possibilities. The data originates from the Covenant or another alien race." She frowned. "If it's another alien species, the Covenant probably wants these artifacts to scavenge their technology. Either conclusion opens several new opportunities for the NavSpec web." "I am aware of that," Dr. Halsey said, raising her hand. If she allowed the AI to continue, Cortana would talk all day. "One of those opportunities is Project Mjolnir." Cortana spun around, and her eyes widened. "They approved the final phase?" "Is it possible, Cortana," Dr. Halsey replied, amused, "that I know something you don't?" Cortana wrinkled her brow in frustration, then smoothed her features to their normal, placid state. "I suppose that is a remote possibility. If you'd like, I can calculate those odds." "No, thank you, Cortana," Halsey replied. Cortana reminded Dr. Halsey of herself when she had been an adolescent. Smarter than her parents, always reading, talking, learning, and eager to share her knowledge with anyone who would listen. Of course, there was a very good reason why Cortana reminded Dr. Halsey of herself. Cortana was a smart AI, an advanced artificial construct. Actually, the terms smart and dumb as applied to AI has been misleading, All AIs were extraordinarily intelligent, but Cortana was special. So-called dumb AIs, within the set limits of their dynamic memory processing matrix, were brilliant in their fields, but were lacking in creativity. Deja, for example, was a dumb AI, incredibly useful, but limited. Smart AIs like Cortana, however, had no limits on their dynamic memory processor matrix. Knowledge and creativity could grow unchecked. She would pay a price for her genius, however. Such growth eventually led to self-interference. Cortana would, one day, literally start thinking too much at the expense of her normal functions. It was as if a human were to think with so much of their brain that he stopped sending impulses to his heart and lungs. Like all the other smart AIs that Dr. Halsey had worked with over the years, Cortana would effectively die after an operational life of 7 years. But Cortana's mind was unique among all the other AIs Dr. Halsey had encountered. An AI's matrix was created by sending electrical bursts through the neural pathways of a human brain. Those pathways were then replicated in a superconducting nanoassemblage. The